Yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone. I'm really happy that I'm here for so many different reasons. I think the least scientific one is that I just had a full night of sleep without having to care for an 8-month-old baby. And that was great. I feel so relaxed. And now, but now it's all about work. It's about the musical development across the lifespan. And I'm starting off my talk. It will be a bit different than all the other talks, but I hope you could be happy with that. So I will briefly introduce the group I'm working with at the moment, and then I'll dig into definition and measurement of musicality, and then present a bit what might go on across the lifespan and how musical development takes place, and have brought our DORA project with me to introduce to me. That's about to introduce to you, and it's about rhythmic abilities. So our group is new at the Max Planck Institute, so I take a few seconds to introduce it. So we are interested in musical development. We focus on development in early childhood because there is a lack of knowledge for that particular age group. And I think there's not much musical development research going on in Germany. It's quite actually, I'm not aware of any other groups doing a lot of developmental stuff over here in Germany. There's much going on in Canada, in Northern America, and so on, but it's exotic here. So I'm very happy that we have the chance to work in it. What we do is that we study musical development and also study it as an example for aesthetic development and try to have a broad look on musical development, having on the one hand, doing a lot of field work in different kindergartens and schools. On the other hand, working together with a research kindergarten, and as a third road of information incoming, also having kids coming to our lab. And so use that methodological approach to get some sort of a comprehensive picture about musical development. Okay, if you think about musical development, one thing that might be important is to know what musical abilities are. People talk about musical skills, musical abilities, musical talent, musical aptitude, and so on. And there's the interesting question, what might it be? And on the one hand, you could think about musicality, that it is a general human faculty, or you can understand it that way, that is used for processing music. You could understand musicality as a concept or a name for all observable skills and abilities and achievements that are related to music. And you could also see it as a kind of a latent trait that differs across individuals and is influenced by genetic, environmental factors, and of course their interaction. So these are some sort of different standpoints you can take to think about musicality. Most of the people agree on that musical talent or musicality is normally distributed in the population, and yes, that it can be measured through musical achievements and musical development over time. So you can observe behavior or apply perceptual tests or evaluate productions and see and then conclude how musical someone is. However, it is unclear what kind of measurable abilities really or achievement can be indicators for musical talent or musicality, and of course how they relate. You can see I've brought two models with me, so they are really start a pointer by now. I don't know. Okay. Who cares? You see that different people have like different ideas. If musicality, for example, is like in a G-factor model, something that all belongs together and overlaps greatly, or like in the multifactorial approach, is really more like a profile. So they don't overlap that much, but you can assign a profile to every person, telling how good he or she is in rhythmic tasks or singing or anything else. And Yes, these different concepts are some sort of problematic because they're not very similar, and actually we're still on our way to find out how the best definition or the best construct or concept could look like. And if you want to have answers to that, you either need suitable theory or information from surveys or from expert committees or something like that. And that's the point where I lead you next, because we thought about the question, what makes a child musical? Yeah, conducted a survey. So our point is, as I already stated, that there is no common concept, no common definition. There are several people that hold several views what musicality might be, and yeah, I mean, musicality is a socially constructed concept, so it might be some sort of interesting to really ask people that are constructing that construct. And so we made a bigger
So
plan.
today I'm going to present you two studies that I'm currently working on. One is about the conceptions of musical ability.
That's weird. Okay, so we made some sort of a bigger plan what to work on. So we wanted to have something like surveys on conceptions about musicality, and then have some conduct a systematic review of already existing tests, and then put that together.
So today I'm going to present.
Okay, let's see.
So today I'm going to present you two studies that I'm currently working on. One is about the conceptions of musical ability, and the other one is a systematic review of existing tests of musical abilities in childhood. With the results of these studies, we would like to empirically evaluate existing tests and also to develop new measures if the existing tests don't fully cover our consumption.
See if it is possible.
As a final result, we will hopefully have developed a comprehensive test battery of musical.
Started with a simple question and the surveys. So we asked, how do parents, kindergarten teachers, and music educators define musicality? And we asked lots of people. So there, we decided to have lots of different, let's say, views in there, because parents might see other musical behaviors than kindergarten teachers or musicians or music educators. They all had to work on an online survey and had to give answers to the question, a musical child can remember melodies or is enthusiastic about music. So we had several statements and they had to work on them. These statements were adapted from a survey that was already used for adults. And in addition, we had items from the Gold MSI and collected some demographic information about the children. And I directly dig into the results. So what we conducted a PCA, and what we saw is that the 4-factor solution was the best solution for our data. And we found the factor musical communication, the factor enthusiasm and motivation, then analytical understanding, and musical abilities. These factors can be, understood as musical abilities. Is that what we all probably know from music ability tests? So it's singing and rhythmic tasks and all that, or rhythmical behavior. Then analytical understanding is a bit that, or sums together that children can talk about music, what they have just heard. Is it sad, or is it happy, or is it fast or slow? So it's some sort of, they can analyze what they just heard. And musical communication is their ability to answer musical to someone else or to connect musical to someone else. And enthusiasm and motivation is basically how much they are willing to play music or to get musically active or to listen to it, how often they seek opportunities to engage with music. And that's what we saw when parents and kindergarten teachers rate 3 to 6-year-old children. And then we had another sample where we asked educators and parents to imagine or to rate children under the age of 3. And they worked on a slightly shorter online survey with similar questions, only some of them were age adapted, because you see definitely different musical behaviors in under 3-year-olds compared to 3 to 6-year-olds. The rest was really the same. And what we saw here is, again, that the 4-factor solution were best fitted. And we see again musical communication, and that the factor has basically the same facets or meanings as before. Then we see enthusiasm and motivation. We see something we call adaptive expressivity, and again the musical ability facet or factor. And if we directly compare those, it's some sort of interesting that it's only, the most interesting point I think is that they are not the same. So there is some sort of a difference, but it's just a small difference. So both models have the musical communication part, and both have enthusiasm and motivation. And in the analytical understanding and adaptive expressivity, there's the difference. And the difference we do see here is adaptive expressivity seems a bit like a kind of a precursor of analytical understanding, because every facet or every item that went in there was things like, if you play music to the child, can he or she use the body to express what the music is like? So it's more like a more unconscious form of analytical understanding. So the child has to, or infant or child has to analyze what he or she is hearing and then react to that and show it through that form of adaptive expressivity. While the older ones, they can already talk about it and think a bit more about it. And then we phrase that more kind of an analytical understanding. And then we do see in both groups or in both models the musical abilities. Okay, I'm a bit worried. Yes, it's working. Okay, that's nice. So we, oh my God. No idea.
You need a pointer?
No, I need to get rid of the, also ich meine, das, was auch immer das ist.
Okay, well. Okay. Don't want this. Whatever this is. But I also activate the pointer for you if you need it.
Okay, danke. Okay, so from our initial plan we had, so we conducted study 1 and 2 and saw these conceptions of musical abilities, and then now into a systematic review of existing music tests. I feel we do that for ages by now, because there are lots of tests and tasks in the literature, and yeah, hopefully we'll end up by having these comprehensive test battery one of these days. So what I find the first take-home message that should be in time in the 20 minutes. So it's that concept of musicality change with the age of the children. And I think one of the most important points is that the musicality tests or the musical ability tests we do have so far only cover a small range of facets that people find important or define as important for the concept of musicality. So probably we need new tests or new observational methods to complement existing tests. And what I think what is also really important is that motivation and enthusiasm seem to be the most important components of musicality if you ask parents, kindergarten teachers, musicians. And I think that's something that is really important for music educators, or also for creating new musical aptitude tests, and for informing the people really working with the small kids what is this all about. I mean, we are all very focused on musical abilities and what they should be able to do, but sometimes it's just the motivation to do it and the enthusiasm and just making music which brings kindergarteners into staying with music or loving music. Okay, so then coming back to the musical development thing. Yes, here we are. So musical development is a lifelong process. It begins prenatally and ends up with death. And basically, you could say that there are two forms of musical development. One is the enculturation, which means that you musically grow into your culture or learn music rules and principles. And this is for kids mostly unconscious. And then we have the musical training, which really means learning musical skills. And that is happening conscious and planned. Which form of learning occurs really depends on your age. So for infants, it's basically enculturation, and in childhood, training starts to be comes more into the picture. And yeah, I'll give you a brief overview about musical development, and then probably dig into one study in the next 3 minutes. So yeah, the first, I should have the pointer by now. First important point is that already prenatally musical perception development takes place from about the 20th week of gestation. A fetus is able to hear. And what we then see is once they are born, this side is the perception side. Once they are born, infants are quite competent listeners. So, I mean, of course, they are not competent in music making. They just started, as you can see that on this slide. But the important point here is that they have listening habits that are really similar to those of adults in some respects. So let's say they listen to music in a relational manner and are able to figure out that the transposition of a melody is the same like the untransposed melody. And then for children, so basic musical things are just at work on the perception side, and infants start producing with singing and drumming and some sort of dancing already. And then in childhood, the more complex musical abilities start to develop. More complex abilities, I mean, like pitch perception gets better, tonality comes into play. And there's really, in rhythm understanding and also rhythm production, there are a lot of things going on. So kids are getting much better in rhythmical skills. However, I think it is quite interesting that we see on the infant side that infants are really good at perceiving rhythm and grouping rhythmic patterns and all that, and it takes quite long until we see performances that are quite good. So that was the reason why we conducted another study. And it's all about finding out how the developmental trajectory for rhythmic skills might look like, and what probably could be a problem that we see successful rhythmic movements or drumming or anything else so late in development, so really late in childhood. And we ask ourselves, is there an influence of motor ability or an influence of context or whatever might explain it? Or is it simply a developmental trajectory? And that's what the research project DORA is all about. And we asked ourselves a lot of questions, and the results I brought with me are just the preliminary ones for those questions. So do beat perception and meter production skills develop simultaneously? And does motor skill development influence rhythm skill development? And we had 215 participants taking part, and they came from different age groups, and we also included adults to have like a complete picture of it. And what we did to them, they all had to drum in this wonderful setting, and they had to work on rhythm production and also on a rhythm perception task. And the interesting thing for today are those. They had to execute meter by clapping or walking, and they had to listen to different meters and decide if one is faster than the other. And then we also had some social situations in which they should drum, either alone or with a social partner. And then we had our confounding variables like control variables, demographic stuff, and also the motor skills. And what we see in our preliminary analysis is that there is a significant development for the perceptual skills, for media perception, in the way that adults seem to significantly differ from all the age groups except the 8-year-olds. And then for the media production part, we see that there again a developmental trend, and that here between the age groups earlier on there are significant differences. For example, the 5- and 6-year-olds already differ significantly, and it looks as if here at age 7 it reaches some sort of a plateau where the 7-year-olds are quite similar to the adults performing that task. And I think what might be interesting to show you is the role of motor development. So we only saw a role of motor development for the production task, for the media production task, and only for 2 age groups, for the 8-year-olds and the 6-year-olds. And here there was a relation between balance skills, so walking, and the production skill, the media production skill. And I think that's basically it, because I've already told you that, yeah, and stick there with the musical development. And thank you for your attention.